Good morning, esteemed directors and honorable delegates. My name is Rachna Narang, and I have the honor to welcome you to CISMUN VIII, an event all of us here have been zealously awaiting. I am pleased and impressed to be surrounded by so many bright and inspirational students, and I only hope that through CISMUN VIII, you further develop your public speaking, leadership, and problem-solving skills. As delegates, you will debate the designated agendas for each committee and will get a chance to realize the importance of international relations, security, and world peace. I sincerely hope this event will help you take action as global citizens leading a fair and just society for the future of humanity. Needless to say, we wish you all the very best. Now, without further ado, I invite our Secretary General, Nayonika Choudhury, to take the stage.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all delegates, chairs, IP members, teachers, and my fellow secretariats, and of course, our esteemed guests. It gives me great pleasure to have you all here at the 8th iteration of CIS MUN Bangalore. I am Nayonika Choudhury, and I've had the privilege of serving as CISMUN VIII's Secretary General for the past year. Having had an experience of 3 years with CIS MUN now, and being part of the executive board across 3 MUNs, not only has this journey helped me understand the gargantuan amount of work that goes behind organizing a conference of this stature, but I've also become a better delegate, chair, secretariat member, advocate, and most importantly, global citizen. The theme of CISMUN VIII is a race against time. I believe that this theme appositely embodies the current situation of the world in all contexts imaginable. As vaccines are distributed across the globe, countries are rushing to vaccinate their populations before new waves and strains of the virus are created. The world looks for more sustainable ways of living and producing before it is subjected to an irreversible climate catastrophe. Governments rush to contain the spread of drugs among its youth. I distinctly remember the first time I stepped into a committee room. I was barely 11 years old, and fear, anxiety, and trauma were just the beginning of what I was feeling. But once I took the stage, once I got my first speech out, once I made my first POI, I realized that MUN is going to be a huge part of my life. So if you're a first-time delegate and you're apprehensive about this whole ordeal, trust me when I say that MUN has the power to change your life. It certainly changed mine. And as I stand in front of you today, as the Secretary General of a conference hosting multiple international schools from across 3 continents, I am very, very proud of the progress my entire Secretariat and myself have made over the past 1 year. Delegates, student officers, and advisors, once again, I cordially invite you to our conference, where we will discuss pressing issues under the theme of race against time. With the ongoing perils of planet Earth, we must discuss, argue, and come to solutions, for it is us and nobody else that will implement these changes and attempt to solve the problems as changemakers, innovators, and facilitators of a new tomorrow. I'd now like to call upon Mr. Regis Caudrillier, Principal for High School, to deliver his opening remarks. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. It's real. We know it is happening, and we know it is happening now. Of course, I am talking about climate change. The long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns, mainly caused by human activities, especially the burning of fossil fuels. However, this is not the only issue the world is facing on a global scale today. With the rapid growth of the world population, there is incredible pressure on our ecosystem. Around 1 million animal and plant species are threatened with extinction, many within decades, according to the 2019 Global Assessment Report on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Service. There are a host of other challenges facing humankind that need to be tackled immediately to ensure its own survival. This is why we are finding ourselves in a race against time, this year's CIS MUN theme. The 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals represent an opportunity for everyone to be aware of the challenges and get involved in finding viable, sustainable solutions to the issues facing the world. There are so many ways you and I can make a difference. We can start by consuming less, begin to reuse and recycle more, or use increasingly efficient sources of energy. We can also decide to be more actively engaged and start a local campaign to save an endangered animal species, for example. Individual efforts are the need of the day. As we have realized for some years now, the Earth is one giant ecosystem, and factors affecting one area of the planet have repercussions in other parts of the world. Individual efforts need to be coordinated at the local, national, and global level so large-scale projects and policy changes can take place to bring lasting solutions. This is why the work of the United Nations is so critical in bringing about the coordination needed for innovative solutions to be shared and implemented on a global scale in this race against time. CIS MUN is a growing platform allowing students to come together and mock tackle the issues of our world today. In doing so, they gain the skills to enable them to become the future leaders and change makers of tomorrow. In 2019, CIS MUN VI allowed students only from CIS to participate. In 2021, the conference shifted online and witnessed participation from schools in South India. This year, in CIS MUN VIII, although we would have liked to host the conference on our beautiful campus, the online scenario has allowed participants from Turkey, Hong Kong, and even Canada to join. I wish all the best to the participants of CIS MUN VIII, and I look forward to attending several sessions. Thank you.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above a lonely sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religions too. Imagine all the people
welcome everyone to Canadian International School's 8th Annual Model United Nations Conference. This year's theme is A Race Against Time. I would like to start by thanking our leading members of our MUN conference. Ms. Nayonika Choudhury, Secretary General. Harsh Shrotriya, Deputy Secretary General. Nikita Marashwari Daga, Deputy Secretary General. Ronald Joy Bopurjari, Undersecretary General for Finance Operations. Rachna Narang, Undersecretary General for Conference Management. Doan Huang, Undersecretary General for Communications and Public Information External. Joan Yun, Undersecretary General for Communications and Public Information Internal. And Aditya Adiraju, Undersecretary General for Communication and Public Information Marketing. And also to our faculty sponsors who really helped put all this together. This theme, A Race Against Time, is so poignant and that we have been in the 11th hour on so many issues for so many years. But there is a very different feel worldwide that has not been present before. We have witnessed, and many of us directly affected by global forest fires that have raged and ravaged countless acres of land, killed billions of animals, nearing many species to extinction, and have caused untold damage to human life, health, and property, to our home, Earth. To quote the committee description for this event, with the choices we made to advance our own species, we have created divide within ourselves. We amplified greed and we mercilessly exploited the very land we live on. And now in the 21st century, we find ourselves in a race against time, where we must undo the damage we created before its consequences, quite literally, catch up with us. In a time when we are more connected with each other through high-speed travel, the internet, devices in our hands, exponentially more powerful than the computer that supported the first moon landing, we are at a time when technology that could have potentially united us has created further barriers and division, as the gap between the haves and the have-nots grows even further. During the pandemic alone, corporations and billionaires' wealth has grown so significantly that it makes the Gilded Ages of the 1920s and 1930s to seem provincial and quaint. We have not been this divided as a people across the globe for decades. Politics are so polarized, long-thought mitigated issues of overt racism, white supremacy, and hatred have roared back to the forefront. And sectarian violence over race, religion, and ethnicity have come back into fashion with our politicians, our political leaders, who seek to gain and stay in power by keeping the people of their nation divided. Our political class has lost any pretense of being there to support their people and has fully become an oligarchy in supposedly democratic states like the United States, the EU, and India. Only a handful of nations, like Taiwan, ironically not recognized as a country by only but a few dozen countries worldwide, actually operate like a real democracy that actually care for their citizens and their land. Taiwan, too, is poised to be swallowed up by China as corporations and governments kowtow to the billion-plus market and make decisions based on profits over people. Things over people. Individual wealth over collective well-being. As a member of Generation X, the underachieving generation, I was a child of the silent generation and the younger sibling or nephew to the baby boomers, perhaps the most greedy of generations, that came into being after the last major worldwide catastrophe, World War II. Baby boomers gave us consumption and plastic and disposable everything. And while individuals in each generation may have or have been responsible global citizens, the effects as a whole of an entire generation's decision-making has come home to roost. And you all, we all, are now paying the price. Again, as a member of Gen X, I do hold some responsibility for not responding enough, not protesting loudly enough, not getting involved enough, as is my generation's moniker. A large part of why I became involved in education, and particularly international education, was to work with children and young adults so that we could actually shape change in the future. Because all of you have grown up knowing that you shouldn't litter or pollute, that toxic pollution is not confined by national borders, that the rainforests in the world actually really matter to everyone, that overpopulation is really everyone's issue, and that being selfish actually has worldwide consequences. When is enough enough? Do we really need private jets and pleasure yachts and personal space travel when we have unhinged forced mass migrations of people based on poverty and war, half of the world's population living in or near poverty and who lack food and clean water security? When is enough enough? So when I see all of you preparing and presenting today, anchoring this MUN conference to sounding the alarm for civilization, I'm saddened and heartened all at once. I am saddened that all of us have not done more and have created a world where you have to pay attention, not to one or two global crises, but myriad crises, all of which present existential threats to living a peaceful life and to human civilization itself. I am heartened, though, inspired to see you all persevering and planning, proposing and acting to make a difference, to sound the alarm, to get involved and to make long and sustainable change. I encourage you all not to stop at the end of this conference, but seek out ways to operationalize what you discover in the coming days. Ask yourselves, how can I live more sustainably in the world I live in today? What do I do that contributes to these myriad crises? How can I uplift my family and friends to be a part of a sustainable future? To eschew the trappings of individual wealth and fortune at the expense of collective well-being. We all want to live well, for sure, but not to accumulate wealth beyond anyone's real needs. It starts with us as individuals. You can shape the face of your generation, each as individuals moving towards a collective whole. I am humbled and honored to speak to you all today, and I will put any and all support I can into helping you on the changes you see needed within our community. Our keynote speaker today, Manu Chopra, is well positioned to talk about key intersections to where we find ourselves today, technology and poverty. Manu Chopra is a founder of Chopra Foundation to tackle extreme poverty using technology and co-founder of CS Plus Social Good that aims to change the conversation about computer science on Stanford campus and gear it towards social impact. He lectured at Stanford University and has spoken around the world to fight for this cause. Through his program, he has moved 10,000 rural Indians out of extreme poverty. And with that, again, I wish to welcome you all to Canadian International School's 8th MUN Conference. We know you will all make us proud through your efforts over the coming days. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Manu Chopra. I run the Chopra Foundation. The Chopra Foundation works on tackling extreme poverty in over 1,000 villages across India. And we've been doing this over the last 5 years since I graduated from Stanford. I always knew that I wanted to come back to India as someone who grew up privileged. I think it's our responsibility to give back to society. There's a chapter in the New Testament and Bible that says that, to whom much is given, much is expected, right? And I strongly believe the price of admission to the life that I live, the life that this audience, that the people I'm speaking to live, is living a life of service, right? Is serving people that we have left behind, serving people that have so much to offer that simply don't get the opportunity to do so. So that's what we do in over 1,000 villages across the country. We give people work. We give them dignified work that they can do on their phones. We help them out in every possible way we can. And one of the most recent things we have seen in our fight against poverty in rural India is how connected poverty is with climate change and with injustice, right? And that is the fundamental root of what I think we're going to be facing in the next 20 years, where the effects of climate change will affect the poorest people in this country the most, right? We are already seeing extreme weather events. We are seeing unseasonal rainfall, but for those who live in nice homes in Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, it barely affects us, right? It's something we comment on, right? But for my villagers, unseasonal rainfall, extreme heat destroys their crops, right? Like one of our villages, they received half a year's worth of rainfall in a day, and it destroyed the entire crop for the year. And they had no revenue, no income, no livelihood for that year. This is a village in Maharashtra, right? And I think it is our responsibility as people in power, in positions of power, people with privilege, right? Like if you can wake up every morning and decide this is what I want to do in my life, that's a position of privilege, right? That's the position I wake up with every morning, right? I think it's our responsibility to help them, right? And there are multiple levels to this, right? The first is, of course, doing everything we can do from an individual perspective to really help. I think the need of the hour is to look at lenses that you are passionate about, right? So you could be an artist, or you could be someone who wants to be an architect, or someone who wants to be a designer, someone who wants to be a technologist, someone who wants to be a teacher, right? And look at that lens, and then look at how you can connect that lens to climate change, right? So if I'm an artist, I could create engaging art forms that help people understand how to deal with climate change. I think one of the biggest issues is that dealing with climate change is so paralyzing and it's so scary, right? Like telling someone that we have 7 years till things we cut off point of no return, right? Or it's already too late, or it's all going to end, right? These are fatalistic, pessimistic thoughts, and they freeze you to inaction. And that's the last thing we need, right? We need to be optimistic about this, and we need to know that change is possible, right? As long as we believe that we can fix it, right? Change is possible. And then the other element of this is, if not us, then who, right? We are the most privileged young people in this country today. And if we don't fix this mess, who will, right? And that's one element of this that I really want you to take out from this 5-minute talk, right? But the second element of this is, so say you are that artist, right? Can you use your art to convince other people to optimistically tackle climate change, right? Say you're an architect, right? Can you build sustainable architecture so people are living in spaces that don't hurt the environment, right? If you're a technologist, can you design new technologies that can get people to work on climate change, right? This could mean things like Chrome extensions that tell you that the Google flight you're taking will add this much carbon footprint. Would you want to offset it, right? It could tell you if you're shopping on Amazon for something that's like bad for the environment, like plastic or leather. It could tell you there's an amazing, more sustainable product that you can use right here, right? Technologies can really enable healthier choices, can enable more sustainable choices, and technologists can design those technologies, right? That's one other element of it, right? There are also things we can do on an individualistic levels, right? Like just making sure that we are offsetting a carbon footprint. So avoiding unnecessary travel, right? Not traveling first class, and when you're traveling, making sure you're traveling in a manner that you're offsetting your carbon footprint. There are airplanes like KLM, like the Dutch airplane KLM, that offsets everything. So yes, their planes are a little costlier, right? Their flights are a little costlier, but it really helps the environment, right? So there's several elements to this that we need to take a look into, right? And make sure that on a daily basis, your choices should be sustainable, right? As rich consumers, we vote with our dollars. So we literally vote for the world we want to see with our dollars. If you refuse to engage in unsustainable behavior, businesses all over the world will be forced to adopt sustainable behaviors, right? That's what you see. When you go to a hotel, you won't see plastic bottles anymore because the consumers were like, we don't like that, right? So we need to make the same noise on multiple fronts, right? So as to save our environment, right? That is one big element of looking into climate change. The second is just leading the fight, right? It is very inspiring to see young people leading the fight. So whether it's Fridays for Future, right? Whether it's incredible climate organizations in rural India, right? Like we in this country have a long history of climate advocacy, like Chipko movement, right? Which I'm sure you all heard about, right? So all we have to do is look at the past, look at the present, elevate the right stories, find ourselves in those stories, and lead the fight ourselves, right? We can't keep on waiting for a savior to come and fix climate change. I'm sorry to break it to you, we have to be the savior. We have to save the climate change, right? We have to save the climate and make sure that we are working towards it, right? And at the same time, I would also encourage you to be kind and compassionate, right? I think one discourse about climate change that I find particularly worrying is how often we blame the poor for hurting the environment. Yes, they use coal in their villages because there isn't a cheaper option. Yes, sometimes they burn stubble because there is nothing else to do, right? As people in powers of privilege, it's our responsibility to design better solutions, right? What is stopping you or me from designing something that makes it easier for them to not burn their stubble but dispose of it in another way? They don't like the smoke either, right? So being kind and knowing that it is our duty and our responsibility, it's literally the price of admission into this amazing life that we all live, that we work to tackle these issues on an individualistic level, on a socialistic level, right? On a social level, on a communal level, right? And in the companies we lead, right? Like we're all going to create organizations, companies, and we're all going to work on different fields, but it is our duty to take a look at what we are really interested in and connect that to climate change and lead the fight. And I'm really confident that I will find you to be the spearheaders and change makers and the leaders that we need in this fight. Thank you so much for your time. Have a lovely day. Please feel free to email me on my email. I'm sure it's mchopra@cs.stanford.edu. And I would love to chat with you in ways we can lead climate change on the ground in rural India. I also highly recommend Professor Harish Hande. He's a professor at MIT who's done phenomenal work in this field. And I think he will be absolutely brilliant in helping you guys out. And also his organization, Salco, is one of the most incredible organizations in this field. Thank you. Have a good day.
And with that, we bring this opening ceremony to a close. I would like to specially thank Mr. Regis, Dr. Mockrish, and Mr. Manu Chopra for addressing our audience. And I hope that all participants are geared up for 2 exciting and exhilarating days of debate, discussion, and resolution. I hereby declare CISMUN VIII open. All the best.